Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here coming at you from the Knife Center, and today we're taking a look at the top 10 best hard use and EDC friendly pocket knives from one of our favorite American manufacturers, Zero Tolerance Knives. Let's check them out. So even though ZT has historically been known for building really big and beefy overbuilt flippers, usually the titanium frame lock variety, ZT also does a lot more than just that these days, and to that end, we're going to take a look at a couple of their smaller designs first. And the first is the ZT22, which is the perfect blend of ZT's heritage combined with small knife practicality. Designed by Tim Galian, and it comes in at the $200 mark right now. Now initially I didn't really like this knife too much, as I actually got bit by the tip of the blade the first time I opened it, but I've since warmed up to it because it really does make a small and rugged EDC knife option. It's still a titanium frame lock flipper like ZT does so well, but we've just got a scant 1.8 inches of blade here. Folded up, it's small enough to fit in that little fifth pocket in your blue jeans if you like, but it still flips open much like their bigger knives thanks to a really good detent and KVT bearings in the pivot. We've got CPM 20 CV blade steel, because if you're going to have a blade this small, you're going to want as much edge retention as you can get from that edge itself. And we've got a nice clip point with an aggressive tip, flat ground with a nice continuous curve for really good cutting geometry. It's even got my preferred stone-washed finish, which is going to help scratches blend in as you actually use the blade. Now the handles only offer a 2.5 finger grip, but they still manage to make this feel very secure, and that's thanks to these really prominent finger grooves. Because of that, not only does it look nice and classy thanks to the carbon fiber on the front scale, but you can still put this knife to work thanks to the really locked-in grip that you get with this design. Now this next knife represents a new genre for ZT, which is the non-locking folder, and that started with the ZT 230 and the newly released 235, which I have here available for 180 bucks right now. And I picked this one because I prefer the modified Wharncliffe blade shape as opposed to the sheep's foot that you get on the standard 230. Both have fairly thin blade stock and they have a nice flat grind, so they're going to slice very well, but I like the extra piercing capabilities and the slight curvature to the edge on this particular knife. Now, even though this knife is non-locking, everything about this design is completely modern. The steel is 20 CV again, establishing a bit of a pattern here, and you get that powder metallurgy construction as a result of that as opposed to a traditional ingot steel. Then, rather than wood or bone for the handles, you get fully modern carbon fiber. And then even though they call this a slip joint, the mechanism is nothing like your granddad's pocket knife. This is what we call a double detent folder. You can see the back is open. We don't have a traditional slip joint back spring there. Instead, we've got two detent bars that are each embedded on either side of the handle from the inside, and that provides the retention on the blade itself. So in a way, it kind of has more in common with an old friction folder rather than a typical slip joint back spring. Now the best part about this type of design, especially for a brand like ZT that are known for their flippers with satisfying action that encourages you to fidget with them, there's still some element of that fidget-friendly nature with this mechanism. Even though you have to open this blade with two hands, you can close it one-handed very easily. You can actually flick it closed with a little practice and it feels really nice. Just put your finger up here, load up the pressure just a little bit, and it snaps closed. Now the blade shape that we've got here with this modified Wharncliffe design really plays well with that double detent. Since when you're using the tip for piercing, the force is going to be going up and back towards the spine, so it's less likely to disengage than if you had a blade that had a lot of belly and a tip higher along the center line. Still, the detent on this type of mechanism isn't super strong, so you are going to want to be careful or be mindful when you're using this blade. Now this knife also introduced a new style of pocket clip for ZT, and that's this deep carry clip that's low profile and mounted from the inside with no outside screw holes. Because you don't have those outer screw holes, it gives it a very clean look overall, and they've still managed to make it an ambidextrous clip without having to worry about whether you're going to have those extra screw holes there or even supply a plate to hide them. They just simply disappear. And since the clip sticks up slightly, this knife truly does disappear in your pocket. And with that narrow black look with no branding on it whatsoever, it truly would seem just like a nice ink pen from the outside. Now another one of their latest releases to make our list this year is the refined 707, which runs at $248 right now. An elegant executive knife with a trick hidden inside the frame, which I'm going to get to in a little bit. The blade itself is 20 CV as you'd expect and about 3.5 inches long. And this really long, narrow profile offers both precision and a good amount of reach with a nice thin cross section that should help it slice very effectively. We've got a stonewash finish again that not only stands up to hard use, but it also looks great against the carbon fiber on the front side of the handle, which contributes to the beauty of this gentleman's knife. Now that fancier ideal is furthered by that deep carry pocket clip, which also mounts internally. It's pretty much identical to what we just saw on the 235, and the overall nice slim handle construction, which means even though you've got a lot of blade here, it is going to carry very easily in the pocket. Now what sets this new knife apart though is the detent for the flipper is actually nested into the carbon fiber side of the handle rather than on the lock bar, which would be industry standard, and that allows you to still flip the blade open easily, even if you happen to be putting pressure on that lock bar. This is a nice little feature that shows that ZT is still willing to innovate, and because it's mounted internally rather than some sort of plate on the outside, much like the pocket clip execution, the aesthetics from the outside are nice and clean. You get those nice uninterrupted lines. And it really works. Even when you're purposely gripping tight, the action backs up the intent with nice snappy KVT deployment. Now, even though the 707 looks a little bit on the delicate side, it is still built for hard work, which is the ZT legacy after all, but if you want the size they're famous for, they still do overbuilt very well. 2020 actually saw the relaunch of several of ZT's classic series, and the beefiest of the bunch is the new 308, which is a thorough revamp of the 300 series, which really put the company on the map, and it's even poetically priced at $300 right now. Now the handles are a combination of G10 on the front and titanium on the back, and both of them have the same contour, and they're milled with a nice and subtle yet attractive pattern. It really fills the hand nicely because you get a good swell and a good amount of traction without being too aggressive. The stonewashed 3 3/4 inch drop point blade has a bit of a harpoon tip, 20 CV steel again, and I love the high flat grind and the shape of the edge itself with a long sweeping belly. This knife may feel like a brute in the hand, but it's still ready to slice. Now looking right here behind the pivot, you see this little pass-through, which is actually introduced by the 308 and has since found its way onto that 707, starting to become a little bit of a brand signature maybe. And we like the look of that, but the pivot itself is even cooler in my opinion. It still has KVT bearings and the action is super crisp, and thanks to the weight of that blade, the action really does have a resounding satisfaction to it. But the pivot itself is a solid 1/4 inch thick, so you have a ton of strength in that rotating part, and you can even adjust it from the outside with a standard 1/2 inch box wrench instead of a Torx bit. That size and that easy adjustability make this a great option for the job site, since you're probably going to have a wrench handy, but this knife is going to be at home anywhere where hard work needs to be done. Now another in the series of newly relaunched ZT classics is the 357, which is a sleeker reimagining of the assisted opening 350, and they can be had for just $148 at this point in time. Now where this differs from most of ZT's flipper lineup is the use of speed-safe assisted opening rather than KVT bearings. Now with that type of action, you don't even have to think about it when you go to open the knife. There's pretty much no chance of a misfire. All you have to do is manually start opening that flipper, and the spring's going to take over. Now I'm sure you're going to be surprised, the blade here is 20 CV. It's 3 1/4 inch long in this case, and you can get it in 2 different finishes. You can get it in a black wash, which of course is something of a ZT signature, or the working finish on this one I've got in my hands, which is sort of like an acid etched and very heavy stone washed finish. It's a great blade. You got a nice acute point, flat grind, and a slicey edge profile. The handles are G10, and we've got liner lock construction here rather than a frame lock, and it's got some more modern touches overall than the older 350. You got a deep carry pocket clip for one thing, and it is reversible for left or right side carry. We've also got some sculpting to the G10 rather than the flatter slabs on the older model, and you even see a nice touch on the liners itself. There's nice heavy bevels here right on the inside where your finger lands when you're hitting that flipper to make things really comfortable when your finger lands there. See that also on the lock bar itself, you've got a nice comfortable bevel there. It's a solid design overall and is one of the more affordable full-size ZT knives available right now. That's how it earns its space in our lineup today. All right, given as we're halfway through this video and we haven't talked about Dmitry Sinkovich yet, it's time to rectify that, because ZT has collaborated with him on a ton of different models. You're gonna find his name all over their lineup, and we're gonna start with the 456, which comes in at $260 right now. Now this knife is a chunky little pocket bulldog, but it's definitely got the bite to back up its bark. You got a broad angular sheep's foot blade. Again, we've got 20 CV as you'd expect, 3 1/4 inches long, and it's ready for really aggressive and powerful cuts. The titanium handle is equally broad and angular, and the shape of that blade really flows into it nicely, but despite the angles you see there, it's actually really comfortable in the hand. Those bevels kind of mimic the shape you get with a radiused handle, and the wide, flat shape overall really nestles into my palm exceedingly well, and it lets you put that powerful blade to heavy work. To keep it looking great, we've got some blue accenting hardware, which is just a really classic combination with bare titanium. The reversible pocket clip has a nice deep blue, as does the nice ridged back spacer, and the oversized pivot actually fluctuates a bit between blue and purple. Looks really cool. Now next on our list is another one of the Sinkoviches in the lineup. It's got a very different vibe, a bit classier rather than brutish, but it certainly still makes an impression when you flip it open, probably thanks to that 4.1-inch blade. This is the 452 CF, and despite being bigger than the 456, it's actually a little bit cheaper at $240 right now. Biggest reason for that, I think, is the use of S35VN steel instead of 20CV. I know, I broke the pattern, I'm sorry. It's still a great steel, but 20CV is a little more premium, and that goes the way, at least part of the way, to explaining the price difference there. Now there's a dirty little secret with this knife. There is a shorter version, the 450, which I actually prefer, but come on, I gotta show the big one in the video, right? Everything else here is as you'd expect from a ZT. You've got great KVT action, tight lockup from the titanium frame, comfortable carbon fiber on the front side. Now there's a big reason this makes our list though, and that's because this is the biggest ZT you can get right now, and yet it's still less expensive than you'd think for the amount of awesome that you're getting. All right, this next knife mixes things up a little. It's one of the few ZT frame locks that is not a flipper. It's actually a collaboration with Ernie Emerson, the ZT640 available for $248. You get a little bit of that Emerson tactical flair with a sleek, stylish aesthetic coming from ZT, featuring these green carbon fiber onlays. Now you don't get Emerson's Wave pocket deployer, but you do get the Emerson style ambidextrous thumb disc that makes it easy to open with either hand. Plus, without the Wave or a flipper, you've got a nice clean profile when the knife is open, which is definitely something to appreciate. Nothing sticking up or down, just straightforward good looks. You've got 20 CV blade steel again, and this, just like the previous two knives, has a two-tone finish. You've got stone washing on the sides of the blade, but on the grinds themselves it is a satin finish. Now you could call this a liner lock, but to me it still feels like a frame lock, since the scales here aren't really providing a structural element, and the titanium is still nice and thick for strong lockup. This knife fits in the hand well, and it carries nice and flat too. Folds up very efficiently, so this knife really lets you carry a lot of blade in a small space. Now that was number 8, so now second to last is my personal favorite ZT, the RJ Martin designed 609. And for me, it's the perfect size for EDC. You got about 3.4 inches of 20 CV steel with a highly usable drop point shape, with a little bit extra on the spine to keep things visually interesting. And the handle itself is just milled to perfection. On both sides, in fact. It's anodized gold, it's got a great shape and a really good grip thanks to the milling pattern, and yet it's slim enough to carry easily and full enough to put to work. It's got a manual KVT flipper, but the pivot hardware itself is actually Martin's see-through pivot, which is a nice little detail that keeps your appreciation up. Now the reason that this one takes the top spot for me personally is that it's just as strong as anything else they make and still very stylish, but it's a little bit more understated in its dimensions, making it a fantastic EDC gentleman's knife. Now rounding out our top 10 list is a classic. For me, when I think of zero tolerance, the knife that comes to mind first is the Rick Hinderer designed 562. So for that reason, we're ending this list with the 562 Ti, which comes in at $280 right now. This knife has everything a modern flipper needs. It really is the essence of the genre. You've got the titanium frame lock, and that frame itself here actually features a stone washed finish, so it's gonna wear well in your pocket. It's not gonna look bad when it starts to get scuffed up. You've also got the lock bar insert to keep lock stick at bay, which is something you see on all of these knives so far, and it's gonna also provide a nice long wearing interface. You've also got the signature Hinderer stabilizing disc here that acts as a lock bar over travel stop. You've got KVT bearings for snappy action, premium steel, for the last time, 20 CV, and it's even got a deep carry pocket clip. Now it is mounted internally like some of those earlier knives we looked at, but you do see one external screw on each side. It's ambidextrous, and I love this type of rear mounted design because it really does keep the knife out of the way until you need it. Now the drop point blade itself on this knife features Hinderer's slicer grind, so that it's stouter at the heel of the blade and thinner closer you get to the tip. This provides slicing efficiency as the belly of the blade moves through your material, while the thicker grind at the base lets you power through heavier cuts with more confidence. It's an all-around fantastic performer, an icon of the flipper genre, and in this all-titanium form, it's still at the top of its game. All right, that's all I've got to show you today for this top 10 list of the best zero-tolerance knives. Love to know what you thought of my picks. Let me know down there in the comments, and if you want to get your hands on any of these great knives, we'll leave links in the description that'll take you over to KnifeCenter.com. And while you're over there, make sure you're signed up for our Knife Rewards program, because you might as well earn some free money to spend on your next knife if you're gonna buy one of these cool knives anyway. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you're not already. Thanks for sticking around. See you next time.